Coming up on this edition of Pinpoint Weather University, we are still digging, prying, and thawing our way out of the historic snowstorm that hit us here in the Carolinas. We'll talk about just where this storm ranks in Charlotte winter storm history. We'll also talk about how this massive snowstorm took place in the first place. Plus,
it is my job this February 2 to look to the skies and report back to you that there is a shadow here on my ground. 6 more weeks of winter abound.
If you are living here in the Carolinas, you're probably not a fan of that projection from Punxsutawney Phil, but I do have some good news for you. I do think warmer weather is on the way, and I don't think we'll have to wait 6 weeks for it. We'll go from the Groundhog to the Ground Brandon and talk about the forecast for the next month or so.
Pinpoint Weather University, sponsored by Gaston Roofing.
Welcome into Pinpoint Weather University, my friends. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Queen City News Plus. Boy, what a weekend we had here in Charlotte. We had a historic snowstorm that hit the Charlotte area. This was a massive storm by all stretches of the imagination. Do want to show you a look at just some of the video that took place that day. You can see just some of the leaf blowers blowing the snow around. This was a very rare powdery snow for the Carolinas, and it was a rare foot of snow across many parts of the Charlotte metro. Just look at some cars navigating through it a couple days later because of the thawing out that's been taking place. You can see the kids, families having a great time in the snow. It was a lot of fun. Now, these crews here, road crews, they've been working hard. I mean, all the way around the clock to clear us out of the snow for not just main roads, but secondary routes, side routes. They've been busy. And you might have been busy as well, because a lot of folks have had to shovel their way out of their driveways. And a lot of folks have still been having to go to work. And you can see this dash cam photo, just probably what looks like a sheet of ice there from the days afterwards, where we had the freeze and thaw happening. Essentially, you had things thawing out during the day, temperatures plummeted, and we had big refreezes. So this was just a crazy snowstorm. I grew up in Cabarrus County in Concord, North Carolina, and we had a massive snowstorm February 26, 2004. I was about 6 or 7 years old. I don't remember it very well, but this system itself ranked up with that storm. So 11 inches of snow in Charlotte is the biggest snowstorm we've had since February 26, 2004. We had about 11 and a half inches of snow that day. Now, with that snowstorm, I don't remember much from it. I couldn't even find pictures from myself playing in that winter storm, which I kind of hate. I would have been like 7 years old. I definitely would have enjoyed it, but I don't remember it very well. I do remember being out of school for an extended period of time. But overall, I don't remember that event. I might have been like the first grade or so. But yes, that was the last time we've seen a storm of this magnitude when it comes down to winter weather. Now, where does the storm rank? You look at the top Charlotte snow days, and this is just looking at one-day events. So essentially how much snow fell in one day, not the actual event prolonged. Like, some snowfall events will go for 2 or 3 days. Like this snowfall event technically went for 2 days. We had 11 inches of snow one day, and then we had 4/10 of an inch on the Sunday afterwards. So, top Charlotte snows, one-day event, February 15th, 1902. If you remember that, we'd love to come chat with you. But we had 14 inches of snow that day. And then January 7th, 1988, we had 12 inches of snow. February 26th of 2004, the one we just talked about, 11.6 inches, so just over 11 and a half inches there. And then you have to go down to fourth place to find the event we just had. January 31st, 2026, now ranks fourth for the biggest snowstorm in one day for Charlotte, 11 inches. So again, that is actually tied with December 29th in 1880. And these snowfall totals are just wild. So we saw 11 inches of snow in Charlotte, but it wasn't just Charlotte that saw the snow. We saw Kannapolis with 16 and a half inches of snowfall. China Grove up in Rowan County, 14 and a half inches. Concord, my hometown, 13 and a half inches of snow. those areas got more than Beach Mountain received in this event. Beach Mountain only got 13.3 inches of snow. Now, they probably know how to measure snow a little better there because they see it more often. So notice the 13.3, measuring it to the nearest tenth of an inch. Got a lot of half inches and just kind of whole inch reports here towards the Charlotte Metro. But Salisbury, 13 inches in Harrisburg, Huntersville, Cramerton, Troutman, all seeing a foot of snow. So that's spots like that parts of Mecklenburg County, Cramerton, as you're getting towards Gaston, Troutman, up in Iredell. So yes, this was a massive event. It covered a lot of ground, and you have to go down to 11 inches to get to Charlotte. Now, I kept Charlotte on the first page, but Gastonia actually did see more than Charlotte. 11.5 inches measured there. 11 inches in Mooresville, Mint Hill, Pineville, 10 inches. Matthews, Bowling Springs, Fort Mill, and Clover, all at least 9 inches of snow. Keens Mountain, 8.5. Pageland, 8.4 inches. So as you're getting down to South Carolina. And then TKK, 8 inches there. Same with Cherville and Mount Holly and Hickory also seeing 8. And then when you get to spots like Lenoir, Morganton, Taylorsville, Lincolnton, 7 inches of snow. Rock Hill, just about 7, and then Shelby 6.5. Now, I couldn't include everybody on the list. There's obviously several snowfall reports from different locations, but that was just a list that I ended up picking out of because there's just so many different cities to pick from. Now, I want to show you this. This is actually, I'll pull it up here in just a second, but Iowa State has an Iowa Environmental Mesonet site. So essentially, you can go on Iowa State's meteorology page, and they have several different things you're able to plot. Public information website. They do a great job monitoring it and keeping it up to date. And essentially, I went on there, and I wanted to see how much snow did we see across the entire state of North Carolina, and even South Carolina. You can see it. It's just not going to be colored in. So this is a look at that map. So essentially, this is taking all the snowfall reports and trying to make a contour out of how much snow we received in several different locations. So you see over I-85 towards Salisbury, Concord, Kannapolis, those locations, seeing between 13 to 16 inches of snowfall. So seeing well over a foot in some locations. Near Charlotte, 11 to 12 inches towards Mecklenburg County. And then as you got further west, you see the 13.3 up there, up towards the mountains, up in Beach Mountain. And then notice where there was a lot of dry air with this system. As you're getting over towards Raleigh, Fayetteville, you can see my cursor there. That is essentially where we had what we call subsidence. So you had sinking air with this system, and that was drying everything out. So Raleigh, Fayetteville, Durham area, again, these spots only got about 4 to 6 inches of snowfall versus the drastic totals we got here and the drastic totals that happen along the coast. Along the coast towards New Bern, as you're getting up towards Wilmington, spots like, we're talking about areas along the coast getting anywhere between 10 to 19, near 20 inches of snow. And the Outer Banks region even picking up on snow. So this is a significant event, not only for us here in Charlotte, but across the entire state of North Carolina and South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, I've got my cursor here. Totals are more so towards 3 to 6 inches. But as you're getting up towards like Lancaster, as you're getting further north, totals more like 6 to 8 inches. But then it's really us here in the Piedmont of North Carolina that really got the most snow out of this. So we were just in the right spot. Raleigh, Durham, not necessarily in the right spot, but still 4.5 to 6 inches of snow. It's good for them. And then as you're getting over towards the beaches, big event for the coast. New Bern, seeing between 16 and 19 inches. That is just unbelievable. So just talk about a massive system. And something I want to show you, look at this leaf blower here. A lot of folks were able to use the leaf blower to blow the snow out of the way. And that was because we kind of had a more powdery snow. And I talked about this on a recent Pinpoint Weather University, but I thought I'd talk about it again just because of just how powdery and light and fluffy the snow was. So here in Charlotte, and really across the Carolinas, we're used to a very wet and heavy snowfall. And what that means is when temperatures are near freezing, the snowflakes, as they're falling down to the ground, they can actually partially melt. And as they partially melt before they get down to the ground, they turn into these wet, heavy snowflakes. And that's what we tend to see here in the Carolinas. However, with this event, out of the ordinary things with this event, temperatures were also well below freezing. So we had temperatures in the teens and dropping through the day. So with temperatures being way below freezing, the snowflakes were able to fall down in such a defined way. There were videos that were coming in, and I would look at them, and I'd be like, man, you can almost pick out some of the snowflakes with this event. It was just so unreal how cool the snowflakes looked on the ground. It was just that very dry and fluffy snow. It was easy to move around. This is a video from our very own Khalif Rhodes. He actually was able to get some good aerial drone footage of just his area, I believe, towards the Mauer Creek area. And this is just really, really cool. And this was at the start of the event. So this was in the morning on Saturday before the event really took off. We probably had 2-3 inches of snow on the ground when he sent this video in. And just think, we had to add about 7 or 8 more inches of the snow to that before it finished up. So it already looked like a winter wonderland 12 hours before the event even ended. So that just shows you how wild this event really was. I mean, it was just a really cool event. And looking back at those snow ratios, so we tend to look at snow ratios on a 10-to-1 ratio. So taking this full screen for you, 10-to-1 ratio, essentially what that means is 1 inch of precipitation leads to 10 inches of snow. That's what that ratio means. That's what we tend to look at. 1 inch of liquid would lead to about 10 inches of snow. With this event, we had more of like a 20-to-1 ratio, meaning 1 inch of liquid would lead to about 20 inches of snowfall over the area. I believe we saw about a 1/2 inch of liquid with this event, about a 1/2 inch. And that was, when you look at a 1/2 inch and you times that by how much snow we received, it gives you like, I think, a 22-to-1 ratio. So technically with this event, we saw about a 22-to-1 ratio of snow versus precipitation. So just a really, really crazy system and a crazy snowfall event here. I was blown away. I went to West Virginia for about 6 years, spent some time up there, and I saw snow very often there. And that was the thing. You'd get snow there almost every week. But I don't think in my time in Bluefield, West Virginia, and Charleston, West Virginia, that I received a foot of snow. I don't think I got a foot of snow. I can't recall that. Maybe like 6 to 8 inches, which is still massive, especially for this area. I mean, think about it, folks. We average about 3 to 4 inches of snow per winter here in the Queen City. We wiped that out by about 3 times that. So that's significant. That is a very significant thing to keep in mind. And I do want to point something out too, something that a lot of folks have been kind of chatting about is just, how did this happen? Well, we have something called a Miller A and a Miller B type setup. And essentially we got the Miller A version of that this past weekend with the winter storm. With the ice storm, we got the Miller B type version. So let me show you kind of how these two, again, this is Pinpoint Weather University. We like to teach you here. So essentially, this is the Miller A type storm. We'll call it the 22 years in the making snowstorm and how it happened. So this is the Miller A version. Area of low pressure forms in the Gulf and then works its way to the north. So it works its way along the coast, all the way up the northeast, and it's a big nor'easter. That's essentially what this is. Now, the green, obviously, that would look like rain, but the green is just signifying there's moisture there. But there can be several different types of moisture depending on how much warm air there is aloft. You can get sleet, freezing rain, snow. It depends on where the low tracks. It also depends on how much moisture is available and how far the moisture gets west or north or east. So just several different things to keep in mind. But that green there, just to signify, hey, there's moisture along this area of low pressure. So that's your Miller A setup. Miller B setup would be the area of low pressure forming to the west, like over the Rockies, working its way across the U.S., eventually getting here to the Carolinas, and then another area of low pressure forms offshore, and then it moves up to the northeast. So that's your Miller B setup. And with the Miller B setup right here on your screen, we tend to get a little bit more of a wintry mix with that because we still have a lot of warm air coming in from the south, and that can tend to lead to what we call overrunning. So high pressure to our north, cold air gets trapped at the surface as it presses up against the Appalachian Mountains. It spreads out over the foothills in Piedmont. You get cold air trapped at the surface, but you get this warm, moist air overriding that colder air, and that tends to lead to a lot more of a wintry mix here versus snow in a Miller-type B setup, and that's what we saw a couple weekends ago with the ice storm concerns. So, with all the snow on the ground, snow is very interesting. It actually can keep us colder the days after a winter storm. Snow-covered ground can actually keep us colder. We're going to talk about why that happens coming up on the other side of the break here on Pinpoint Weather University. Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University. I am meteorologist Brandon Lawson. It was a scary drive home for many folks out there on the roads in the Carolinas on Saturday. We had less than a quarter of a mile of visibility, heavy snowfall, and snow-covered roads, and that was a combination for disaster. A lot of stranded vehicles, spinning out vehicles, jackknife tractor trailers. It was terrifying out there myself, even driving home, but luckily here at Queen City News, everybody was safe. Everybody was able to get to their destination or get home and make it into work okay. So really happy that everybody was able to stay safe. Now, keeping it colder with all the snow. So with the snow-covered ground, we actually could be colder for several days after that event. Now, I don't mean it's Arctic air type of cold. I just mean that the sun doesn't necessarily warm us up as much as it would if the ground was just dry grass. And what I mean by that, it's a word called albedo. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, but we call them high albedo days or low albedo days. Now, albedo is essentially just a measure of how much absorption or reflection an object would have. So the Earth has an albedo in itself, but the ocean would have more of like a lower albedo because it's able to absorb the sun a lot better. Grass, or let me say this, dark pavement, like a road or driveway that's just regular pavement, not concrete, it would have a very low albedo because it's able to absorb energy from the sun very well. Now, snow, very bright colored, would actually have a very high albedo because it's a bright colored object and it reflects a lot of the sun's energy. So here's a graphic on how that takes place. So essentially, snow on the ground can lead to colder days. So during the day, we're getting energy from the sun, and that warms us up, right? So the sun's heating up the ground eventually heats up the air, and you get warmer. So we'll call it a surface temperature here of 71 degrees on this day because of all that heat coming in from the sun. And again, this is just a given example. Now, let's say we had a snow-covered ground. You're still getting heat from the sun, but that sun energy or that heat from the sun is reflecting off of the snow, and you can get a much colder temperature in this scenario. Now, it's not going to be 40 degrees colder, but it might be from 71 to about 65 degrees just due to that reflection that is taking place. You're not absorbing that heat on the ground, so it can lead to much cooler days. And that's how we get these high albedo days. When you have snow on the ground, we could forecast a temperature of like, let's say 47 degrees, but with plenty of sun, that temperature might be 3 degrees colder because we're not absorbing as much heat with the high albedo of snowfall. Coming up after the break, the Groundhogs have made their projections. Punxsutawney Phil is predicting more winter, 6 more weeks of it. We talk about if he's right, and we'll also talk about some of the more accurate groundhogs coming up here on the other side of the break on Queen City News.
It is my job this February 2 to look to the skies and report back to you that there is a shadow here on my ground. 6 more weeks of winter abound.
I want to boo that. I'm not very happy about that. Welcome back into Queen City News Plus or our YouTube viewers here on Pinpoint Weather University. That was Punxsutawney Phil's projection, projecting 6 more weeks of winter. Now, I love Groundhog Day. I'm a big supporter of it. I think it's funny. I think it's a good time. I think it just gives people a reason to get excited about the start of February. But I don't think this groundhog got the projection right this time. Now, there's also other groundhogs, and I want to show them to you. We've got the top 5 most accurate groundhogs here on the list. Staten Island Chuck from New York, 85% accurate. General Beauregard Lee, Down in Georgia, 80% accuracy. Lander Lil in Wyoming, 75% accuracy. Concord Charlie, shout out to my friends at Concord University up in Athens, West Virginia. I spent some time up there in my first job as a meteorologist and broadcasting, and I got to cover Concord Charlie. 65% accurate. I got to give Charlie some credit. In the top 5 for most accurate groundhogs. Then Gertie the Groundhog up in Illinois, 65% accuracy. So, where do the top 5 most accurate groundhogs put us in regards to an early spring or a longer winter? Well, here we go. Staten Island Chuck and General Beauregard Lee, including Gertie the Groundhog, think we're going to see 6 more weeks of winter. Lander Lil and Concord Charlie have us in the early spring bracket. I'm liking where see, this is why I like Concord Charlie. Me and Concord Charlie's representing. We go way back. We go back to like 2019. That's when I first started covering Concord Charlie. So I give Concord Charlie some love, and Concord Charlie knows how much I need in early spring right now too. So we've also got groundhogs here in the Carolinas. They're actually split. I believe one of the groundhogs was early spring. One of the groundhogs was 6 more weeks of winter. So where do we stand? I've got good news if you're tired of winter. I do think we have warmer days ahead, at least in the next couple of weeks. I do think February overall is going to be a much warmer month than what January was. I don't know 6 weeks from now, a month and a half, if we're going to bring the colder weather rapidly back and we're going to have more winter storms, because we can get them in late February, early March. Doesn't happen quite as often, but we can see snow in February here in the Carolinas. But over the next couple of weeks, I do think we're going to be on a warmer stretch. I think we're going to see more 60s in the forecast. Yeah, 60s, which is going to feel more like 90 degrees here in the Carolinas. I mean, we'll just take a 50-degree day, let alone 60. So, yes, I do think we've got some warmer air in our future. This is actually looking at February 12th to February 18th. So this is looking essentially mid-February here. And notice all the red there across the eastern U.S. That is a sign that we're going to be tracking warmer than normal temperatures, and that includes the Carolinas as well. Now, as it fades to a little bit more of a lighter color over the Carolinas, that means we'll see above normal temperatures, but it likely won't be 20 degrees above normal like it's looking like it could be towards Dallas, St. Louis, or spots like Houston, and even as you're getting towards Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, that spot there is more of a darker red. That's a sign that they're going to be seeing well above normal temperatures. Here locally, I think we'll probably see maybe 5 to 10 degrees above normal. Because remember, our normal temperature is coming up. It continues to rise. We should really be in the upper 50s around this time of year. So low to mid 60s does make sense for mid-February. So if you are a fan of warmer weather, you're a fan of getting winter out of here, I do have good news for you. I do think the winter season, at least, is going to take a break for now. And I think we are all excited about that. Again, looking at some of the video just from this snowstorm, I know I showed you the leaf blower, but I just can't get over just how crazy this event was. It ended the month of January, too. It was the last day of January, January 31st. And January was just cold. I mean, it was cold. We ended January with back-to-back winter storms. This is going to be a winter storm that a lot of folks are going to be telling their kids about when they grow up. These kids that are enjoying this, they're going to be like, man, this is really cool. So I just really am excited that Charlotte got to see this, because it's been so long since we've got an event like this. Now, I understand there are dangers to winter weather. But it just comes down to being safe, taking care of yourself and each other as you're outside, not doing anything crazy, too crazy at least, do some crazy things in snow, but not too crazy. But I've seen a lot of snowmen. I've seen so many snowball fights just driving around in my neighborhood, and it just felt good to see. I think it's a great way for us to start the year with just this historic snowstorm happening over the Carolinas. Now, when you look at January as a whole, January was very cold for us. It wasn't the coldest January we've ever seen, but just looking back at some of the stats, we had an average temperature of 42 degrees, which is actually far from the coldest January on record. The coldest January on record we've had in Charlotte was actually 1977 with a 30.1 average temperature. So about 10 degrees lower on the average temperature compared to what we had. Now we look at snowfall in the month of January and looking at where that ranked. Again, kind of showed you that towards the top. But when you look at snowfall, I mean, we're right up there. We're talking about third on the list when you look at January snowfalls here in Charlotte. And then again, it was a very cold month where we saw frigid mornings, ice storms, and winter storms. But guess what, folks? You got through it. And how did we get through it? We got through it together. Again, folks, as always in the show here on Pinpoint Weather University, thanks for watching us. Thanks for always taking the time to get a little bit of learning on how the weather takes place, not just, it happened. Let's move on. It's always fun to detail the educational facts about it. And also it's fun to put the Groundhogs to bed a little bit and talking about what really is in the future when it comes down to the next 6 weeks. Winter or early spring, I think we see a little dose of spring, but I do believe winter probably will make a return, at least as we get towards late February into early March. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Take care of yourself and each other.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.